For Greg Fairley, the road back to horse racing has been long, winding, and at times unbearably dark. Once a promising young jockey with a bright future, Fairley saw it all come crashing down in 2011 when he was handed a 12-year ban from the sport for corruption offenses. The decision by the British Horse Racing Authority, BHA, effectively ended his career overnight. At just 26 years old, the future he had worked so hard to build seemed to dissolve in an instant. Fairley was no stranger to the demands of racing life. Growing up in Scotland, he had been consumed by horses from an early age, quickly making a name for himself as a natural rider with a fierce, competitive streak. The pressures of racing at a young age, long hours, constant travel, the fight to maintain weight, were already enough to test anyone's mental resilience. But when his ban hit, it was more than just the end of his career. It was a public humiliation that stripped away his identity. I remember the day the decision came down, Fairley recalls. It was like someone had pulled the rug from under me. Everything I'd worked for, the early mornings, the sacrifices, the missed family events, it was just gone. I didn't know who I was without racing. In the immediate aftermath, Fairley tried to keep going, but the emotional toll was immense. He fell into a deep depression and retreated from the racing world entirely. Friends drifted away, opportunities dried up, and for the first time since he was a boy, he had no idea what came next. I went through some pretty dark days, he admits. There were times I didn't think I'd find my way back to anything, let alone racing. But as fate would have it, the ban that had once felt like the worst thing in his life would also lead him to the very best. In 2012, a year after moving back to Scotland to start over, Fairley's mother introduced him to a young woman named Kimberly. The connection was instant. She had this warmth about her, he says. I was in such a bad place mentally, and she just saw me. Not the headlines, not the mistakes, just me. I don't think I'd ever met anyone like that before. The two began dating, and slowly, Kimberly helped him rebuild his confidence. They married in 2015 and now share 2 children, Freddie 7 and Flora 2. Fairley credits them with changing his life more than any race win ever could. I'd never have met Kim if none of this had happened, and her and the kids are the best thing that's ever happened to me, he says, his voice softening. It's an achievement in itself that they put up with me, and I never thought I'd be a dad or anything like that. Having people to take care of makes you grow up immensely. Kim keeps me grounded and has been such a huge support through all this, too. I couldn't have done it if not for her. Still, the itch to return to racing never left him. Fairley began to think about what it would take to make a comeback, though the process was far from simple. His first application for a license was rejected, a blow that could have ended the dream for good. When my license was denied, initially I was on a downer, he admits. It felt like all the old feelings of hopelessness were coming back. But my wife spoke to me, and we knew we had to keep fighting. I felt I'd served my time, and I wanted that second chance. Encouragement also came from an old friend, fellow jockey Royston French. The two had stayed close during Fairley's exile from the sport, often visiting each other and talking about racing days gone by. Royston's been a big part of my life, Fairley says. Even when I was banned, he kept in touch. He told me to speak to Rory McNeice, a former jump jockey and lawyer, for advice. Rory suggested I contact the Professional Jockeys Association, something I'd never have thought of on my own. That suggestion would change everything. As soon as we got in touch with Paul Struthers, the CEO of the PJA, it took a lot of stress off me and Kim, Fairley says. I don't think there's anything I could say that could thank Paul enough for what he's done. I never thought someone would go out of their way to do all this for me like he has. I could ring at whatever time of night and he'd help me. He even sat with me through all the interviews with the BHA. Fairley admits he was never confident in front of officials or cameras. I was always nervous in those kinds of situations. Even back at school, he laughs. But Paul was always there to reassure me and keep me right. Having someone believe in me like that, It meant the world. The persistence paid off. In the summer, the BHA finally granted Fairley his license, marking the start of a remarkable comeback story. Not just for a jockey, but for a man who had faced the loss of everything and found his way back stronger and more grounded than before. These days, when he mounts up in the parade ring, it's with a very different perspective than the ambitious teenager who once thought racing was everything. Now, it's about gratitude, for second chances, for resilience, and for the unexpected turns that life can take. If you told me back in 2011 that one day I'd be riding again, married and a dad to two amazing kids, I'd have laughed. In your face, he says. But here I am. Life's funny like that. Sometimes the worst things end up leading you to the best. And as for the racing, Fairley's eyes light up. I've still got a lot to give in the saddle, but win or lose, I get to go home to my family at the end of the day. That's the real victory.